Paghahandaan ko ang nababagong klima. Magtatanim ako ng puno at sisiguraduhin ko ito ay tutubo.
Paghahandaan ko ang nagbabagong klima. Magtitipid ako ng tubig habang naglalaba.
Paghahandaan ko ang nagbabagong klima. Huhugutin ko ang plug kapag hindi ginagamit.
Paghahandaan ko ang nagbabagong klima. Ako'y magsisegregate at magre-recycle.
Paghahandaan ko ang nagbabagong klima. Hindi ako magtatapo na basura sa ilog.
Paghahandaan ko ang nagbabagong klima. Gagamit ako ng eco bag.
Paghahandaan ko ang nagbabagong klima, hindi ako gagamit ng dilamita.
Paghahandaan namin ang nagbabagong klima. Makikilaw kami sa mga gawaing makakabuti sa ating kapaligiran.
Ang epekto ng nagbabagong klima ay kaya nating tugunan. Iba't ibang tungkulin tungo sa iisang layuning bayang handa.
Well, I'd like to thank Capital University through its president, Attorney Juarez, and to all the members of the press for taking time out to try to shed light on a lot of things about climate change and also spread the news that climate change is not a complex issue. It just seems to be, but it is really understood, and it starts from the youth, and they can also help us spread information about how we can move forward on climate change. As I've said on stage and on some of your TV stations, ang impormasyong alam mo ang siyang magliligtas sa'yo. So the whole purpose of the Greeneration Summit is not only to inform our youth on how to address climate change, but at the same time have speakers that are doing their own initiatives. We have two young, dynamic mayors from the municipality of San Vicente in Palawan and from Del Carmen Municipality on Siargao Island, Surigao del Norte, to share what they've been doing so far in the very young terms that they have in the respective municipalities. And of course, we have Miss Ana Oposa, who is our chief mermaid. She is the only mermaid that I know that is 100%, 98% on land and probably 2% in water. But you will be so surprised and amazed that her advocacy started when she was young, and now it's almost like a daily routine for her. And what we wanted to show to our youth are examples of of these individuals that are maybe in different backgrounds but are moving to the same goal of spreading the news that climate change can be survived. And on the Climate Change Commission itself, we have the National Climate Change Action Plan, which the President signed in 2011, and last year he also signed another law called the People's Survival Fund Act, which set aside a ₱1 billion fund to help local government units and local communities adapt to climate change. What this fund is originally intended is to provide support to local governments in their aim of long-term planning that is science-based. Kadaghanan manggod sa mga plano sa atong mga local government, labi na sa disaster risk management ng ilang mga plano, ay base paghihapon sa miagi na mga insidente. Ang pundo angay nato kadaghanan tulad ng San Vicente, which is a first-class municipality, but the poverty incidence in San Vicente is high, and it is although imbued with rich in natural resources, we wanted to show that despite this, they can actually earn from their natural resources, and this is the kind of model under the Ecotime framework that we wanted to show the proof of concept that despite the odds, the community itself can still flourish with their natural resources without exploiting them. And Mayor Coro will share some of his own experiences, what are the initiatives he has done in that area, because we know the only way for us to be climate resilient is to provide also livelihood of the community that can sustain itself despite all these disasters, despite all these weather disturbances, despite all increased intense weather events. So hopefully we will be able to share this with you. The People's Survival Fund is already there and signed into law. The reason why we're not able to disburse this fund first is that most of the local government who are beneficiaries of this fund are not yet capacitated to accept this fund. In short, they don't have local climate change action plans yet in place. Mostly these plans are still based on disaster risk management on previous incident, and we wanted to bring in these climate rainfall scenarios to their plans so that we can now properly identify their, based on their land use planning, the adaptation measures. And we know today also we presented a project Twin Phoenix specifically for Cagayan de Oro and Iligan City, wherein we have already finished 2D flood hazard mapping for Cagayan de Oro. But this is of course based on the context that there's no drainage system yet in Cagayan de Oro. So once all of this infrastructure are overlaid in the flood hazard mapping, we know that there will be changes, but at the same time it will be the opportunity for Cagayan de Oro to make the proper investment on infrastructure so that whatever successes we have here in Cagayan de Oro hopefully will be replicated in the rest of the country. I think I've said more than what's needed. It will be great if you could ask the questions and I could better formulate my answer based on that.
Thanks, first of all, to the Capital University for hosting this event, to the Climate Change Commission, and to the media for coming over. For the municipality of Del Carmen, I probably have time later around, I think, 12:40 or 1 p.m. to share with you directly the practices we have for as an adaptation strategy for rural communities. So it's quite different from the urban discussions on adaptation strategies, as we focus on 5th and 6th class municipalities, which includes our Del Carmen. So again, thank you and good morning.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for having us here. It's my first time in Capital University, and it's a really beautiful campus. Good afternoon to everybody from the press and media. Just a quick question. Who here have been to Palawan?
No one. One.
One person in this room. 2. 3. Okay. Hindi kasama yung sa panel. Okay, and yes, so I encourage all of you to visit our wonderful island province. Kung gusto nyo ng beach, Palawan talaga, napakaganda. Although, and Siargao, sige na, and Cebu, lahat naman yan maganda. But I would like to say that you have a very beautiful airport here in CDO. And I mean, I was speechless. My first time to land in the Lagindingan, tama ba yan? Lagindingan Airport, and it's it's really, really awesome. Sana in Palawan we can do the same thing. Anyways, I'm here on behalf of San Vicente because our town is part of the Ecotown framework granted by the Climate Change Commission. So sa San Vicente talaga, kami yung LGU na nakakapag-receive ng programa ng Ecotown. And at the same time, kinuha po ako ng climate change para din po maging Greeneration ambassadress dahil kay Secretary Siring, it's important to her na hindi lang ma-involve yung youth, pero talagang ang magrepresenta ng mga programa ng climate change ay mga kababata din, katulad ni Ana Oposa and Mayor Coro and Secretary Siring. So if you have any questions, later on I will gladly answer them. Thank you.
Hi, Mayong Udto. I'm Ana Oposa. I am the co-founder of Save Philippine Seas and also very honored to be one of the ambassadors of the Greeneration campaign. As the Chief Mermaid and co-founder of Save Philippine Seas, I have a project in Cebu in Malapascua which is really dealing with shark conservation and tourism and promoting sustainable diving practices. So we're working with different stakeholders. So we're integrating marine education in the curriculum. We're working with the dive operators and dive instructors and guides, and also the Bantay Dagat for coastal law enforcement. I'm also part of the Ecotown team of San Vicente, so I have been to San Vicente several times for the assignment for the project. And other work in climate change, my friend and I, who's here, we co-wrote a book. It's called An Introduction to Climate Change for Filipinos, and it's targeted to elementary and high school students. Kasi there's a dearth of educational materials on climate change and environment that is directly for Filipinos. The materials that we have always have polar bears and penguins, which we do not have here in the Philippines. So we wrote that a couple of years ago, and we're proud to say that we've sold about more than 16,000 copies already, and we hope to work with the CCC and the DepEd to make it part of the curriculum talaga. So there.
Historical area, Madam, I have seen personally the 5 big-scale miners. One is Taganito. And these big-scale miners has really, we cannot deny the fact that this has destroyed our environment. Then these big, small-scale miners, the profit that they have received out of their mining business does not go back to Surigao City, but they are bringing all their profits outside.
The challenge always is climate change, and all these things are a complex issue, and sometimes we don't have a handle of the issue. I'm a lawyer, I'm not a scientist. All of us here are not, but we're very driven by our passion and advocacy. So when I sat down as vice chair, knowing that science is not my background, if I am a participant in a community, how will I guide myself? So number one, information. The reason why we're pushing for people to be more proactive in the information is because you cannot demand what you do not know. You cannot keep on asking on things that you don't even know what you're asking in the first place. What do I mean? What are we pushing in the Climate Change Commission? We are not an answer to everything. It's just that it's too cross-sectoral. It will impact a lot of sectors. So how do we, in a way, be relevant? Number two is we have to have a science-based planning tool embedded in your land use plan so that it will lessen political intervention. Example, if your science embedded there, together with some indigenous practice, are in a dialogue, would be considered by the community and everybody agreed with that kind of planning. Who are we in the national government say you cannot do that if that's the choice of the community? But at the same time, if you don't allow yourselves to be more active in the discussion and just allow the local government, who also in a way are being pressured by the big companies, this is where the community becomes relevant. So if you have a science-based planning, It lessens political intervention. Why? Who are you as a mayor to debate when that is what science? It lessens that debate. So this is where we wanted to bring in the table. I cannot answer your question, sir. I'm from Surigao City. I grew up there. I know what you're talking about. But I cannot go there and tell them to stop it right away. And who am I to say you have to debt out all the investments when you allow the investments in the first place? So in short, we know that there are trade-offs, meaning kung ginawa ko to, anong kapalit? Dapat yung kapalit mas maganda. So ganun tayo magpaplano, at ang makakasagot lang siguro ang entry point here in the land use planning, which is risk-based, and it should not be based on anecdotal evidence, but actual scientific-based evidence coupled with some indigenous practices, and maybe we could lessen the debate on how we move forward. I don't know if I answered your question, because your situationer is site-specific. It might not be the same everywhere else. And this is something that the local government can answer. That's why when we brought in our speakers and mayors, they will be the one to be able to answer that, because they have different circumstances in their area. And if, for example, Mayor Pai would be so adamant to follow this kind of planning, together with the buy-in of her community, and then that's what we will follow. So if some mayors would like to do dynamite fishing, even if it's against the law, I guess that's where the community now has to be involved, be informed, so you have to make sure that it's no longer the mayor the next time around. So I'll pass it on to Anna on the first question that I think the second question that you asked.
The second question, I can't answer on behalf of the Commission because I don't represent the Climate Change Commission. But in terms of cleanliness in ports, and what's this? Manila Bay, for a body of water to be swimmable, it should only have 200 units of fecal coliform, or in other words, feces. Manila Bay has, I think, 1 million. So it's really quite depressing. But for me, I think what really needs to come into play is law enforcement, because we already have all the laws when it comes to docking, when it comes to releasing of wastes. And it's just really being strict and implementing and having people roving that area to make sure that wastes are not discharged near the communities. And even inspecting boats, all sizes of boats. There are some boats, the small ones, the mga bangka. For example, the toilet, it just goes straight into the sea. So sometimes there are times when, you're diving and you literally see poop going down. Sorry for the graphic image, but yeah, so I think that's just the simple, it's a simple answer to a complicated situation.
Ma'am, simple lang itong question ko ito. Bakit tinatawag natin Third Greeneration Summit, and what is its purpose, and why do you tap the youth first?
This is our third generation. We started in Manila, in Manila City of Manila, which is the second most vulnerable city. We really pick areas where urban cities, because it is the urban cities and the urban areas in general the one most vulnerable in changes in climate. The second was in Cebu. We know that Cebu is also vulnerable because of water subsidence. Not only are they low, they're also suffering from water extraction. So we wanted to have more awareness and consciousness in this issue. And now in Cagayan de Oro, because of the Sendong, obviously, and then we have a project also here supported by United Nations Development Program. The second is why the youth. Our population now is 50% is below 30, and we feel that this is the generation that will bear the brunt of climate change. We have already projections in year 2020, and that's technically just 7 years from now, and it's around the corner. And the students that we have here, some of them will graduate, some of them will probably in work by then, and hopefully if we don't reach out to this generation, we know that we have to prepare
prepare them. This is actually part of our reduction strategy in terms of disaster risk reduction, because most of our reductions, the disaster risk management, are really reactive, rehabilitation, and response. So we know that there's a recognition that the reduction strategy of disaster in the Philippines is quite weak. That's why we're seeing a lot of increase in cost of damages, simply because most of our infrastructure are no longer ready for the intensity of climate and increased intensity of typhoons. That's the reason why, and we wanted to bring in also the Department of Education and CHED. We know that this is the most important agency if information and advocacy would be our main focus. There's already a science-based consensus by most mainstream science, that greenhouse gases has contributed to the increase of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. So they're simply saying is because of these human activities, although there's our natural emitters of carbon dioxide or greenhouse gases, these human activities are causing, pinapabilis niya yung pag-increase ng temperature globally. And tungod kay nag-increase ang temperature, maunin na nag-change ang climate. Ambot lang ko na mati mo ganiha sa akong talk. Nag-example ko sa haboy, no? Sa amo Surigao, haboy man ang tawag namo sa habol. Ang haboy, murag kung imo siya ikumpara sa greenhouse gas, sige lang kag puno og haboy. Siyempre ang imong panglawas magkainit. Ang diferensya sa haboy, matangtang nimo pag-init na, but the greenhouse gas is not. So when your temperature changes, or the temperature changes, obviously it affects the what do you call it, the ecosystem, or the ecosystem. So knowing this to be so, there are probably things we can no longer change. So our mindset now is managing the unavoidable, and that's why we have here, and hopefully you will stay on to listen to those two speakers from Municipality of San Vicente, Palawan, and Municipality of Del Carmen, Surigao del Norte, so that they will show you how they are actually preparing themselves to be climate resilient. And these are the kinds of initiative that we wanted also the rest of the municipalities and cities across the country, hopefully, to scale up.
And I also represent the studentry of Capital University. On behalf of the studentry, thank you for making it here at our institution. My question, ma'am, is the group is on thinking of making a network of organizations in every school and universities to maintain the advocacy of the CCC team? Because, ma'am, I noticed konti lang talaga yung member ng CCC team.
That we don't need to create more bureaucracy to send our message across. We need to be able to partner with the right kind of institutions, like the academic institutions, Capital University, Xavier University is already a partner. We signed already a MOA with Youth University of the Philippines system. And most especially, and I think the partnership that would be most crucial will be the local government units. The mobilization by the academic institution would be more than enough to help the Commission in its knowledge and management theme, and I hope you could help us as well in the school papers such as this. We have Twitters, we have our ambassadors who are now saying that this thing works, because if I'm the only one saying it, I may sound like a broken record, and I have a tendency to speak too long. So I hope that you could also ask what are the other initiatives of networking with the local governments, and maybe they can share you more. And this is maybe we could ask Mayor Pai and Mayor JR what they're doing on their own, even with a little help from the Commission.
Just to add to that, Charlie, right, is your name? Yeah, because your question was why not involve more universities. I think what Secretary Siring really envisions is to really get the local governments involved. Importante yan, like para sa amin po sa San Vicente, tourism destination po kami, pero hindi pa na-develop yung lugar namin. Yung mga tinuturo tinuturo po nila sa amin ng mga plano at programa para maging climate resilient kami, we can only enforce it and implement it on our level. Kung hindi po kasama ang LGU at kung hindi maintindihan ng LGU yung mga kailangang capacity building, vulnerability assessment, katulad sa mga flood hazard mapping, kung hindi namin yan maintindihan, paano po namin mapapaintindi pa sa komunidad namin. So, kailangan talaga sa LGU level pa lang, doon na yung better teamwork with the CCC. So, that's very important because even for you students here in the university, you also have to abide by the programs and regulations created by your local governing. Yeah, so that's why kailangan yun. Maganda nga na to involve more students, but for plans and programs like this na medyo big scale, mas maganda kung may ordinances and may regulations na talagang galing sa local na pamahalaan.
And then I'll just add something about youth networks. There's actually this group called the PhilYen, the Philippine Youth Environmental Network. I don't know if they're still active, but that's their objective kasi to create a network among environmental groups and youth orgs around the whole Philippines.
To Charlie, actually, the issue of climate change is, as I will discuss later, it's an issue on the youth. It's not the issue on people like, senior citizens going the next 50 years, because the impact will be later. The disaster is the impact is now, right? And the climate change, the impact is later, which will be basically the youth. So, in response to your inquiry about creating a network, actually, you should do that. Not ask the commission, but you yourself should be able to create your network amongst the other youth organizations that you have access to. And you start voicing out to your local governments to demand the best services that the local government has to offer. You demand innovations to address adaptations. You demand from them, from your youth leaders, you demand that you become more active in the community. The idea is for us to work together, not for an individual or an organization to try to solve all these problems, because there is no one organization that can solve this. So we really hope that you create your network, you invite more people to become more active and participate in the process of governance.
I have two questions for Secretary. Yeah, day trip lang ako. My first question is inspired by the recent Sauna of Pinoy. It's already the third Greeneration. So I would like to ask, as far as Mindanao is concerned, what is the state of climate change in this side of the country relative to the more urbanized places like Manila? And my second question is, do you have a time frame for those areas na wala pang climate change policies para naman ma-disburse na rin sa kanila yung pondo para ma-mitigate tong problem na to?
We had a SWS survey conducted at the first quarter of this year. It was already out. 8 out of the 10 Filipinos said they experienced climate change. But 63% said they're not doing anything about it. And if you're to dissect more on the urban areas, the awareness actually is higher on the urban areas than it is on the rural areas. In Mindanao specifically, we had also a statistic of that I can provide you. The awareness in Mindanao is about 45%. That's still below half of the population. And if you look at the 45%, again, these are areas where it was hit by typhoon. Climate change is being made to understood that it is about the weather only. It's not. The push for renewable energy, for example, and there was a question on that, is really a strategy to address climate change. Because what we wanted to push for are those technologies that are alternatively cleaner and that will not emit more greenhouse gases, so that you don't add more to the warming. So in Mindanao, this is why we wanted to do it in Cagayan de Oro. It's a metro city. We will move in the next year, probably 3 more next year, again in metro cities because it's the most vulnerable. We're probably going to go in Baguio and then Iloilo in the Visayas, and probably in Mindanao again would be in Davao. We decided to do it here first for Mindanao simply because of the awareness that's been so high, but at the same time we want to also spread the news that climate change is not just about disaster. It becomes a disaster that despite knowing what science tells us, we don't do anything about it. So on the PSF, for example, how to access this fund, we're now closely working with the Housing and Land Use Regulatory Board and the review on their land use plans. It should be risk-based. We hope to scale up some of this initiative. Actually, if there's anyone who would be able to access that fund already, if the guidelines are in place, hopefully by the end of the year, would be these 2 municipalities because they've already way ahead in their planning process. And the next step for us is to scale this, and hopefully by the end of President Aquino, we'll be able to disburse some of these funds. Because napansin natin, maraming pera, meron ngang pera, hindi naman alam paano gamitin, nasasayang. So hopefully by the end of 2016, if we are lucky, we will be able to operationalize it this year, and we could start disbursing some of the support by next year.
Kini pangutana lang, kini mostly mo na panghitabo. Kini kalabot na sa atong ozone layer nga matod pa nila buslot na, dako ng buslot. Gumikan ani mga big factories nga kinibitang ilang mga usok. Asok. Kini ba kining aso sa mga dagkong mga factory usaban ni sa mga maka-epekto sa atong ozone layer, and then mo create to global warming. Ya dayon dunay matingala ta kay sa adlaw maayo kayo ang conditions panahon pagka gabi hagas lang magkulisimaot. So sa atong palantawan ni ma'am,
ibaho yung ozone depleting substances from greenhouse gases that creates warming. So on the ozone depleting substances, the world is actually successful in reducing it. So we're now able to reduce the ozone depleting substances by changing it with, we phased it out already. In fact, the Philippines is 90% compliant. These ozone depleting substances includes asbestos, yung mga ginagamit sa aircon, ano ba yun? Chloro CFCs pala, chlorofluorocarbon, iba po yun sa ano. We were quite successful. Tama ba, Joy? We're quite successful overall globally. Ang major na lang na nagpo-produce niyan is China and India, nandun pa rin. Kaya yung mga aircon niyo, mga Freon, yan yun. On the other hand, on greenhouse gases naman, iba naman yung category ng gases. Carbon dioxide, methane, kabalo ka na ang dighay sa baka, na idaghan methane, muubo, muutot ka ng mga kabaw ba na tawag niya? Baka, kabaw sa, on the other hand, that's it. So, in short, when these are regulated by a national agency, the one agency involved would be Environment Matters Bureau of DNR. So, naging successful tayo dun sa ozone depleting substances, hindi naman tayo successful dun sa greenhouse gases that, the 7 greenhouse gases that are considered as part that are causing climate to change. So, in fact, when we regulate this, what are the policies involved? Patigyod ang mga national government na libog na kung unsa man ning asa man ta magsugod mag-regulate. So, every time the investor invest, ay dili pala pwede kay di pala pwede. So, in short, because we didn't know then, this is why we're trying to phase them out. I don't think it's really anybody's fault. If the developed countries knew before that this will be the effect of these greenhouse gases, they would have acted sooner than later. So, the big factories that we're seeing right now probably would be, we look at them in the context of climate change, probably on the use of the electricity. Chances are they're using coal or conventional fossil like oil. We know that the Sipalco is contributing, but that's only 1 megawatt. But it's a very good start. And the other impacts, of course, of factories would be on the waste, on how they are actually throwing their waste. And we know that it's very expensive. Wastewater treatment. Most of our facilities, other than the big ones, are not equipped with wastewater facilities. So, and that's why we see a lot of our rivers dead. And hopefully we will be able to catch up. Mauna ang atong tanawon sa mga factories.
Our next question will come from the Manila Bulletin, Cagayan de Oro correspondent, Mr. Bong Torres.
Napasalamat mi nga niyang himo din sa amo sa Cagayan sa aning third Green Generation summit as Cagayan de Oro among host. So karon na lang may pangutana nga importante kaayo kay naman mi din nag-base sa Cagayan de Oro do sa Manila Bulletin ko ga report. In case doon ay mga ingon-ini nga activities, asa man mga agencies nga accredited ang kining climate change, this kind of program, aside from DNR, aside from anong mga NGOs connected?
The Save CDO movement. On the academe, for example, working with Xavier University and MSU IIT with respect to the project Twin Phoenix. And now we're working closely with collaboration with Capital University, and other universities are present. And I'm happy to know that there are students from Surigao City that are here to attend. So in short, other than these universities, DNR, MGB, and this program, I think it's it's faster to check our website, www.climate.gov.ph, if you really want to be more involved. We have people there are so active on Twitter. It's becoming to be annoying. Even at 1 o'clock, they keep on tweeting about a lot of things because it's a 24/7 activity.
Wow,
so we have a Twitter account. I started doing Twitter a few months back. It's scary because you don't know what to tweet. I have to erase it every now and then before I send the tweet. I haven't started Instagram, but our ambassadors are here. They're very active. Mayor Pai, I know, is always on her phone tweeting, on WhatsApp, and all what can be. These are the social media people that makes a lot of difference, and hopefully you can also access their Twitter accounts and be followers.
It's okay. We could not deny because I see the movie kato kang Al Gore ba?
Documented.
Then I serve as a media environment advocates kami sa Bukidnon. So sa Bukidnon, sa Quezon Bukidnon, every time nga mag-plant kami ng seedling sa kahoy, babayaran ng mayor namin tag 8 pesos ang seedling pag mag-grow. Yung ka active dito sa Bukidnon ng mga media. Ang mga media sa environmental advocates gapon. So we're very happy nga mo din Pero dagan kay mga reklamo tungod ani nga mga movement na nasa mga opposition unsa pag counterpart
We were proposing with the PIA. We're working closely with them. We're conceptualizing now a workshop with the media to just to chew this issue, and it's still all over there. So we hope to be able to do it first here in Mindanao, and then we're now trying to finalize partnership with some media institutions, and hopefully you can get more involved in the summits.
Hi po, good noon po. I am Gian El Bambo, the Associate Editor of the School Paper of CU. My question po is very basic because since it is only a part as far as causes of climate change is concerned. Pero I'm just really interested if the Climate Change Commission is teaming up or collaborating with LGUs with regards to promoting the use of non-carbon gas releasing modes of transportation po.
We're pushing. We know that there are a lot of initiatives now on the national level. Makati already has its first e-jeepneys. Now there's a bus running on hybrid electric under the Green Frog. We also launched our Victory Against Climate Change, where Victory Liner, one of the big bus liners, are also moving towards looking at changing their current bus system. Mayor Coro has his first electric tricycle that uses to transport his employees from the town to his municipality. I mean, for a small municipality, trying to invest in these programs should be applauded. And in fact, I've seen a lot of motorelas here. No, that could. It's similar to the tuk-tuk. The design of the electric tricycle is actually similar to the motorela, and it could be a good alternative. And this is part of the plan, and hopefully a lot of our local government units would support this.
Good afternoon po. My question is, I'm glad that you believe that information is power. No? But the question is, how does the climate change plan harmonize with the disaster preparedness plan of the LGUs?
We've noticed that when we sat down with Mayor Moreno, and I think it's not only unique to Mayor Moreno, their planning agency is different from their disaster risk office. When they should be together, now that's where you can see that the mindset of the LGU on disaster is really response. But the planning, which is long term, is on another unit. So what we're working now is to integrate disaster risk reduction or the disaster risk management with climate change adaptation. We focus on the response we still need to do that, but at the same time we have to bring in climate change adaptation as part of your long-term planning. So we have already a partnership with Office of Civil Defense. I am actually a member of the National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council. We already signed an MOU, and we're moving towards ensuring that instead of having a new local climate change action plan, we will integrate it in the existing disaster risk reduction management. And with the City of Cagayan, for example, Cagayan de Oro, we have an initial agreement, a commitment from the mayor that we will rename the DRRO as Climate Change and Disaster Risk Office, just to bring in both as they're almost interrelated, interlinked, so that resources will not be wasted.
Paghahandaan ko ang nagbabagong klima. Magtatanim ako ng puno at sisiguraduhin ko ito ay tutubo.
Paghahandaan ko ang nagbabagong klima. Magtitipid ako ng tubig habang naglalaba.
Paghahandaan ko ang nagbabagong klima. Huhugutin ko ang plug kapag hindi ginagamit.
Paghahandaan ko ang nagbabagong klima. Ako'y magsisegregate at magre-recycle.
Paghahandaan ko ang nagbabagong klima. Hindi ako magtatapo na basura sa ilog.
Paghahandaan ko ang nagbabagong klima, gagamit ako ng eco bag.
Paghahandaan ko ang nagbabagong klima, hindi ako gagamit ng dilamita.
Paghahandaan namin ang nagbabagong klima. Makikilaw kami sa mga gawaing makakabuti sa ating kapaligiran.
Ang epekto ng nagbabagong klima ay kaya nating tugunan. Iba't ibang tungkulin tungo sa iisang layuning payang handa.
gyud ang karon kung kaniadto ang kuan klima. Init karon ang panahon kaysa niadto. Ang sa una medyo maayo yung kuha niadto sa una pero karon multi ka gamay man ang pakuha sa panagat.
Sa vision talaga namin, nagbabago talaga yung coral reef ng Port Barton. Dati matitingkad na green, unti-unting nagiging brown, tapos wala na talaga. Makikita mo mamatay talaga ang corals, nasisira.
For the Eco-Town project, I really saw that they would fill the gap that San Vicente has been missing all these years. There are ways to make it more green and climate resilient para naman nakakatulong tayo, not just sa San Vicente, but sa buong Pilipinas.